So when it comes to money issues, we know that a lot of people are using inflation as the reason for why many people are struggling financially. And for a lot of people, and for some people, I'm sure that's legit, right? Some people are, they've managed their money properly, and because inflation has made things a little bit more expensive, it's caused a lot of people to be more tight with their money. However, we know that there's a lot of other people that use inflation as a reason, when in reality they've just been bad with money, right? And they use inflation as a reason for their struggles. When in reality, all inflation did was accelerate those money issues, right? People with that are already bad with money, maybe living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe just getting by. All inflation did was accelerate those money issues, right? Because maybe, let's say, before 2020, before inflation really got crazy, I mean, they were, like I said, they were getting by, they were living paycheck to paycheck, but they were able to get by because they were able to manage their money. But when inflation hit and it made things more expensive, it caused their expenses to increase exponentially, and then it got to a point where financially they just couldn't handle it. They really couldn't sustain it, and it got to a point where it was like, all right, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm just struggling barely to pay rent, buy groceries to keep a roof over my head. And inflation caused this, right? But a lot of people would just use excuse as inflation for the reason when they're struggling, when really money issues was something they were dealing with for a while now. So when I see this article on CNBC and it says 36% of Americans plan to take on debt for summer travel, it just confirms my thoughts, my idea that many people are very just bad with money, right? And that's the reality. Like, we all know it. Like, we at some point were bad with money. Even for myself, having $30,000 of credit card debt twice in my life. We all know somebody like that, whether it's us or somebody we know. We know people that are just bad with money. So when I see this article, right, and I look at this, it just confirms, and we all talk about doom spending, where people are looking at the economy and say, oh, you know what, the economy is not that great, so what? I'm just gonna spend the money. I'm just gonna enjoy my life and figure it out later. And we all know that's not a great plan. Also, another thing that I think of is that for a lot of people that manage their money this way, maybe they don't feel that that they can make more money outside of their job, right? Because, like I said, they want to experience life, they want to travel, they want to buy nice things, and they only make so much money from their job, and outside of that 3% raise maybe they get every year, they don't think that they can make more money outside of that. So what they do, they say, you know what, I'm just going to obviously take on debt. I'm gonna use my credit card. I'm gonna take on a personal loan. And of course, obviously, this is not a good financial plan, right? You obviously, if you want to do these things, like for me, my thought process was like, all right, if I want to be able to travel, if I want to buy nice things, maybe a nice car, what I'm going to do is find a way to increase my income. Of course, for me, like, being into business, I'm going to try to find a way to create a business where I can increase my income exponentially. But if you're someone that doesn't have that mindset, you're like, my only means of income is either this job that I have or maybe getting another job. There's no other way for me to really increase my income outside of that. So you just get to a point where you say, you know what, there's no point. I'm just going to use the credit card and then I'll figure it out later, right? Which is not a great plan, because things, emergencies happen, things happen, and when you say I'm gonna just figure it out later, it gets to a point where eventually you have no choice but to figure it out now, and it gets to a point where you can't handle it. So what I want to do is I want to read this article real quick. So it's a very quick article, and then I'm gonna give some thoughts on how I would handle it when it comes to like maybe planning for summer vacations or buying things, because I go about a different way when it comes to traveling, right? And I think for many people that are responsible with their money, they do the same thing, right? So let me just read this article real quick, and then I'll go over some of the points in it. So it says some people could find themselves wrangling with summer travel bills well after Labor Day. To that point, 36% of Americans said they plan to take on debt in order to travel this summer, according to a March survey from Bankrate. The payment methods for summer travel expenses range from personal loans at 5%, buy now, pay later services at 8%, to borrowing from family and friends at 6%. Additionally, 26% of summer travelers said they intend to use a credit card and pay over for the vacation over multiple billing cycles. Right? And the reason that's worrisome is because obviously average credit card charges more than 20%, which is close to a record high, said Ted Rossman, a senior credit card industry. Think about that. If you were an investor, right, whatever investment vehicle that you invest in, whether it's real estate, a business, or whatever, stocks. Imagine getting 20% return on your money. You would be doing backflips, cartwheels, whatever it is to be, because getting that type of return is amazing. However, imagine paying 20% to to someone else, right? 20%, that's a lot of money. That's what people are doing when it comes to charging their credit cards and making and carrying a balance and not paying off that balance every month. You're paying 20% to that bank. That's just ridiculous. That's just a waste of money. You're just throwing away money. And instead, you could be getting a 20% return on that money if you just made sure to pay off your credit card bills, right? But a lot of people are doing this, okay, just so they can go on vacation and buy the nice things that they want. All right. So it says, I don't want to tell people they can't have fun. He said, but this represents a lot of people taking on expensive debt, and this is the kind of thing that can linger. And like I said, I understand. We all want to enjoy our lives. We all want to be able to travel. If you have kids, you want to make sure they have an experience, and we all get that. But you have to plan for these things, right? These are things that you have to plan for. Like for me, like if I want to travel, and I'm sure most responsible people that are good with managing money do this as well. They budget. What I did when I got my finances in order, what I did was I would create a separate account, a bank account, where I would put money for travel. Like whatever is in that account, I will use for travel. And people are talking about using the credit card, which is great because when I go travel, I use the credit card, right? Because why get those points, get that free cash, right? Why not? If you're a responsible credit card user, clearly these are things that you should be using in order to get those benefits. If you're not responsible, then you shouldn't be using a credit card, obviously. But for me, when I travel, I use the credit card for everything. So once I'm done with my trip, right, I'll look at, all right, I'll total the total expenses and say, okay, I spent X amount of dollars. What I would do is I would then take that money out of my travel account, put that into, my obviously my account where I pay my bills and stuff like that, and then that's what I would use to make sure I'm funding my vacation, right? This is a responsible way to do it. Whatever's in that account is what I'm using for my travel expenses. And for a lot of people, they don't do that. Whatever's in the account, they use. And if they don't have the cash, what they'll do is just use the credit card. And then obviously, as long as they have a job, they'll pay either the minimum payment or they'll pay as much as they can just to make sure they can cover. They're not missing any payments. But we all know what you're paying for is that huge interest. 20+% on that credit card is ridiculous. I haven't, ever since I got my money in order, I have not paid interest on my credit card. I pay my balance off every month, but paying interest on a credit card is just dumb, right? But a lot of people are doing this. Why? Because they're not managing their money properly, and this is what you get. So it says millennials, 47%, and Gen Z's 42% are the demographic cohort most likely to say they plan to get into debt to pay for vacation, according to Bankrate. There are so many compelling reasons why people choose to take on debt to have these vacations, says Sabrina. If your kids are dreaming of going to Disney World and there's no way the family could ever really swing it without going into debt, it could be a memory that the family will have forever. It's also a memory. The parents divorcing because of financial issues, right? That's a memory for children as well. And obviously, you don't want to get to that point. Of course, like I said, it's a very emotional decision when, okay, you want to give your children the best, childhood that possible. Like I'm not a parent, but I'm sure every parent would do that. I've been to Disney World. It was a great experience. But you don't want to get to a point where you're struggling financially, where you're putting your finances in jeopardy. And because we all understand how difficult it can be for, any family, any family when you're struggling financially, right? And once you're putting things on credit card and you're struggling, it can make things difficult. And like I said, you want to give the children a memory, but you also want to make sure you're being responsible when it comes to your finances. So it says, and parents often can rationalize spending in these terms for their children, especially when the trip feels like such an important seminal part of the childhood. And this is what a lot of people are doing, right? You want to make sure you're being responsible when it comes to your finances, especially when it comes to traveling. Like all it takes is really budgeting, right? And all it takes is budgeting. Like just get a spreadsheet. All right, how much money you coming in, and then you just break down your expenses, right? You reduce all the things that you don't need. You remove all the things that you don't need, subscriptions, whatever you're not using. Remove that. If you got to reduce, eating out a lot, and then just create a budget where you say, all right, every month I want to put X amount of dollars into an account, into this travel account, and if you're planning for a vacation, say, okay, when do you plan on going on that vacation? All right, how much do you expect that vacation to cost? Then you divide that total amount by how many months it's going to take for that time where the date comes where to travel, and just expense that every month. Put that amount of money into the account, so when it's ready to go on vacation, you have that money in that account, and you don't have to take on debt. But for a lot of people, they don't do this, right? They just it's easy to just use the credit card and then make that minimum payment, that $25 minimum payment, and then figure it out after that. But then eventually it catches up to you, like, because you can see the way the economy is right now. Inflation hits, right? Inflation hits, and then inflation makes everything more expensive. Okay, and when you try to, and when as you, and if you're continuing with your poor spending habits, if you had poor spending habits before inflation hit, all inflation is going to do is going to accelerate those poor financial habits. It's going to make things even worse. Okay, so you want to make sure, obviously, if you're using a credit card, paying off that balance every month and making sure you have the money to pay for the things that you want to do. If you don't, then like I said, find a way to make more money. My thought obviously is always to start a business, because you can increase your money exponentially. If you're not that way, then obviously you got to develop more skills so you can increase your value in the market, so you can make more money when it comes to a job. So these are your alternatives, right? Spending money recklessly, trust me, eventually your poor spending habits eventually catch up to you. Okay, so yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment down below, hit the like button and share. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. Right, so you guys take care. Have a good one. Later.